Anyone got anything interesting they want to share this week? Any tests, any achievements, any successes that they want to hail this week? Ahmed says, fine, thank you, sir. I'm good. I'm very good, thank you. Surprisingly awake this week, which is good. 25 out of 30 in the reading. Oh, so good. That's so good. 25 out of 30. That's amazing. Well done. Anyone else think they can top 25 out of 30 in a reading test? That's pretty high standard set already. Right, let me get the music on. It feels a bit. Okay. 24 out of 30 in the writing. Oh my gosh, that's so good. So that means you would have got over 80%, like 82%, let's call it. That's well good. Right, I can see a few more people are joining late. I'll literally give 30 more seconds and then we'll have to start our game. Uh, this week's theme is going to be persuasive writing. So thinking back to all the stuff that we did um, about a month ago now. Okay, right, let's make a start. I'm pretty sure the login will still be on. Okay, let me turn the volume down. It's very annoying. Okay, right. So during these 5 minutes, whilst you're all having fun learning. Anyone else want to share anything interesting with me this week? Don't leave me hanging for 5 minutes by myself. I'm glad. I'm glad. It did look like a fun one. One of these weeks, I need to join in. I'll give you a challenge if you can beat me. Oh, good question. Normally it leaves it on. I should learn not to. I'm not sure what the code is. Let me. If anyone can remember the code, can you put it in the chat, please? Because I've completely forgotten what the code is and I did not note it down. Mhm. 30 out of 30. That's amazing. 100%. What was that in? Was that in the same reading slash test? Reading this? 30 out of 30 is amazing though. Writing. What was it on? What kind of things did you have to write about? So was it like a um sort of like grammar writing test or was it a creative writing test? Cohesive writing. Ah, so basically like grammar related writing then. That's amazing. I have to say, it's not one of my favorite soundtracks for this game. Anyone else want to share anything particularly interesting this week? I improved your English. Oh, how so? Please share. It's amazing to hear. It's always good to get positive feedback. It's amazing to hear. I'm glad to know that my work is not going in vain. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you. I completely forgot to write it down. My apologies. Some games leave it at the top, some don't. I completely forget that not all of them leave it on. Let's see if it comes up with full screen. No, it's not. How so? What made you realize? I'm glad. It genuinely makes my day because sometimes, obviously, everyone has days where they feel like they're not doing that good of a job. So I'm glad that I'm helping somebody, and this is yeah, brilliant news to me. Unfortunately, I can't because if I go back, it's gonna close the game. We're only 2 minutes from the end anyway. So to bear with me for 2 minutes. I'll take this opportunity actually, for those of you who aren't playing the game. If anyone has any recommendations of things they want me to go through in the next few weeks, please say so now before we actually get officially started. I'm always looking for new ideas. I've kind of planned in some more grammar activities, kind of similar to like we did last week. But if anyone wants me to go through anything specific, let me know. This is kind of is creative writing in a way. It's necessary for creative writing anyway. Right, 1 minute left. Who's winning this week? Let me write it down. Is that not the one that we're doing? Do you want to do it again next week? Monster Ball. Ah, sorry. All right, 30 seconds left. Okay, so I've noted down Monster Brawl and Factory. Okay, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see how it's all done. Nice. Well done, Blanc, whoever that is. Okay, let's see how everyone has done. Okay, 67%. Unintentional joke, I guess. Um, okay, nice, 90%, 82, 60. Oh no, 28, 28, 0. I mean, there was only one question, I guess. Um, yeah, 28%. I'm gonna work on that. 78, 80. Okay, okay, not too shabby, not too bad. Samir won again. It's you. Second week in a row. Nice. Okay, right. So we're going to do kind of similar to what we did last week. Last week we looked more at punctuation, which I know is relatively simple. It's kind of key stage 2, early key stage 3 level, but it's something that is very, very useful in life. Somebody suggested, can we do some creative writing? This technically comes under the branch of creative writing. Because I think I mentioned this to you last week, but when it comes to your GCSEs, when you sit and do your English language, 16 out of 40 marks of your creative writing will be marked based on spelling, punctuation, and grammar, as well as vocabulary. Hence why everything I'm giving you is to try and help you get the best out of those 16 marks. Overall, 20% of your entire English language GCSE is spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So although what we are doing might seem a bit simpler, especially, I guess, judged against what we have done in the past, it's very, very useful stuff. Um, so let's go on with what we're going to do today. Let's see. It was in analyzing. Nice. Okay, right. Let's go on with what we're going to do today. We'll make it interactive like we did last week. I know it's really simple stuff, but I promise you going through words and basics in grammar will benefit you greatly. So we're going to start off really, really simply, and I hope most of this will be familiar to most of you. And if not, I'm going to work on our word choices. Okay, so draw lines to match the following definitions of the correct type of noun. So we've got proper, collective, and common nouns. Let's do A. These nouns are words that name a type of person or thing. Which one is that going to be? Let's have a look. I've got proper. Someone's saying proper. C. Proper, proper. It's not proper. It's not proper. Only one person got this right. Yeah, see, it's a common noun. If we're naming people, sorry, so persons, people, it's a common noun. Okay, what about these nouns are the names of particular people and places? Okay, this one's coming back a bit better. Proper, proper, nice. Yep, could people getting this one? That one's our proper nouns. Yeah, ones that are people and places. Therefore, the nouns that are words for groups of things has to be our collective. And I guess that makes sense because if we're thinking about collective, we're thinking about groups, but more than one. Okay. Complete the table below, sorting the words into the boxes. I'm going to leave what I've just done above so you can reference and back check yourself for this one. So, let's start with our common nouns. Is there any in here that are common nouns? In other words, they're names for a person or a thing. Are there any words in the list? Some sort of pizza is absolutely one because it is a thing. Okay, got off pizza. Anything else? Robert, somebody said, is not going to be a common noun because a common noun is a type of person or thing, not necessarily the name of the person. Nice. Rahil got it. Perfect, perfect answers. Nice. So it is pizza, cartoon, and it is piano. Nice. Yeah, all of those things are names of things, of objects. Oops, I put cartoon with 3 zeros. That's three. Oh, sorry. That's not what I meant to do. Okay, our proper nouns then. So these are the ones that are names of people or places. So is there any? Oh, look, see what we're getting for this one. Okay, nice. Getting a few for this one. February, Robert, Australia, Australia, February, Australia, Australia, February, Robert, Australia. Nice, people are getting these ones. Perfectly spot on. It is Robert, Australia, and then February. Nice. And then what about our last ones? They must be things that are collectives of groups. So, for example, a horde of barbarians. I'll just put the first word to begin with. Bunch, and then a bouquet. Nice. Okay, complete this sentence. Proper nouns always start with. What might they start with? If we're thinking about proper nouns, that are the names of people or places. Nice, got a couple of our answers already for this. Nice. Keep them coming. We'll get this right. Yep, yep. Get quite a few capital letters. Perfect. Always worth reminding yourself because in an exam that could be a mark. Imagine losing a mark on grammar because you didn't capitalize a place or a person. Abstract, circle the abstract nouns in the word below. Let me zoom in now we've got to this point. So, abstract nouns. Any here? Okay, got a few. Someone said honesty is one. Forgiveness, freedom, absolutely. What else we got? We've got dream, honesty, comfort, money. Yep. Money is not one. Money is not one, sorry. Comfort is one. There's a dream, desire. Dream and desire both are. I think they're all of our abstract nouns. Yeah, yeah, they're all of our abstract nouns. Okay, complete the crossword below. Um, so we'll do one across first. The opposite of sadness. What might that be? The opposite. People getting this right already. I love to see speedy answers. Happiness. Loads of people saying happiness. Absolutely right. All spelt correctly as well. Nice, nice, nice. Those people smashing it out of the park. Okay, the opposite of misfortune. Two across. We're getting this right. If you're rushing ahead, you can get on the next ones. It's only four letters, but I mean, technically, you are right. Fortune is the opposite of misfortune. But because there's only four letters, can you think of a synonym for fortune? Okay, could people getting this right? It is luck. Okay, what about another word for gossip? Three across. This might be a bit easier if we do two down first, but we'll have a go. Anyone get a three across? No, we're struggling with this one apparently. Okay, it might help if we do two down first. Two down, something of puppies. What? Does anyone know what the collective is for a group of puppies? Nice, it is litter. It is litter. Hey, three down. I think somebody already gave us one down. So it says a pack. Perfect. Anything for three down? It's not. People getting it right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Loads of people getting it right. It is a herd. Okay, so now that we've got the three across, starting with an R, anyone got any better ideas for what might be another word for gossip? Beginning with an R. If I give you the second letter, it might help. No, didn't need it. You didn't need it. Nice, nice, nice. It is a rumor. Yeah, gossip is when you like spread, well, not necessarily false truths about somebody, but when you spread stories about somebody. Okay, let's move on to articles then. So when we're dealing with articles, we're dealing with a, an, pardon me, or the. So fill in the gaps in the statements below with a, an, or the so that they are correct. Use something or something for general things. So we're dealing with either a, an, or the. Which of these can go in A, or the blanks for A? Oh, we've got some controversy here. We've got A and an, and we've got A and the. Anyone want to chime in? They agree or they disagree? I'll tell you the right answer. Nobody's going to chime in. It is definitely A, but it is an for general things. Nice, yeah, 'cause people are going to say that. I jumped the gun on that one, I think. Okay, use something before general things that sound like they begin with a consonant. So the key word there is consonants. So that anything that's not a vowel, so B, C, D, F, G, etc. So do we use a or an before words that begin with a consonant? Okay, ooh, controversial on this one. Got a couple people saying a, one person saying an. One person saying everything. Gotta make a choice. Gotta make a choice. Okay, it is A. Nice, people are getting that. Okay, use something before general things that sound like they begin with a vowel. Ahmed, straight on this one. Straight on it. It is an. Nice. And then use for specific things. Okay, you coming in. Yeah, we got a couple of these. Yeah, it is. Nice. Okay. And the most appropriate articles to the sentences below, or add them, sorry. I got something new coat for my birthday. What would go before the word new? Wonderful. It is A. What about B? Martin went on something and an I. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Something, spider in the bath is stuck. Ooh, got some controversy for this one. Loads of people saying A, only one person saying the. I would go with the. I think it's referring to singular specific spider. I don't think it's referring to a general spider. I think it's referring to specifics. I would go with the. What about something president of a committee came? Nice. Coming to this one. You guys are speedy on this. I love it. It's the. Okay, what about E? People coming in. Nice. Nice. Most people saying A. I would agree. And there was something was nests in something roof. Nice. Loads of people getting this right already, straight off the bat. Is A and B. Nice. Okay, right. Circle the correct answer in the sentences below. Okay, what is A? Nice, nice. It is. Okay, what about B? Oh, a few people getting some people saying and for this one. I would say Barcelona is a European city because we've got to think. Um, Yeah, we've got to think. We've got a European city. Got it either. Okay, what about J was over an hour? I was about to tell the answer then. Yeah, I know. For B, it's a bit of a what do you call it? It's a bit of a misleading one, I would say, because it does have a vowel, but because we're dealing with a specific name of a place, it's going to be a European city, not an European city. Okay. What about C? Sorry, I ignored you. What about C? Nice, nice, nice. Most people saying and perfect. Okay, what about D? This might get people again. This might throw people off a little bit again. No, it's not. Oh, it's thrown all of you off so far. Oh no, sorry, it's not. It's not thrown anybody off. Oh gosh, what am I doing this evening? You are absolutely, it's not thrown anybody off. All perfect. It is. And perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, right. We'll speed along these because these are too easy. We need to move on. Add A and B the correct lead to the passages below. So, first one, let's call this one. I'm going to number them. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. 11. Just so we don't get confused when people give me the answers. Okay, what about number one? What would you say for number one? Okay, loads of people give me the right answer. It is the perfect. Okay, what about number two? Okay, loads of people give me the right answer for this one. Again, it is the, because it's dealing with a specific mayor. What about number three? Nice, nice. We're getting this right as well. Nice, cool. Loads of people getting this right. It is the, again, our third one in a row. What about number four? Okay, let's be getting this right again. Yeah, it's the again. What about number five? Is it going to be all these? No, people are not getting thrown off by this one. Loads of people getting this right. It's absolutely am. What about number six? Okay, people are not getting thrown off by this one either. It's absolutely A. What about number seven? Lovely. People getting this right. It's the um. Okay, what about number eight? People skipping ahead. I'm seeing all sorts of numbers here. About number specifically number eight. Is it Anne or is it dealing with a specific mayor again? I think we're dealing with specific, so I think it's going to be the. Okay. He was wearing something enormous hat. What about number nine? Nice. What about number 10? Lovely. You're getting this right. Absolutely smashing it as always. What about number 11? Nice. Let's be getting this right as well. Okay, what about number 12? Perfect. I am paying attention, but I'm getting like 10 answers all at once, so my chat is just blowing up. What about number 13? Okay, number 14. Nice. Okay, nice. Completely all right. Perfect. Too easy for you all, so we're going to skip the last exercise. Any questions on any of that? Hopefully, I would hope it would be too easy for you. If it wasn't, we'd have a problem. Okay, time for some pronouns. I know it's boring, but keep on at this. It's really useful stuff, I promise you. Okay, right. So, first exercise. When we're dealing with pronouns, we're dealing with um, words that describe, I guess, people. So sort the words below into the correct boxes. Sorry. So when we're dealing with personal versus possessive is anything to do with ownership. whereas personal is anything to do with exactly as it sounds, the person or describing or referencing a person. So, what kind of things, what kind of things would go into the personal pronoun box from our list above? Nice. Ahmed says we. Perfect. Cross that one off. Anything else will go to the personal box. Nice. We got she in there as well. Perfect. Anything else will go to the personal box. Got loads of she's. It's people have got as well. Nice. There's one more. Anyone know what it is? Nice. Getting loads of it is they. Perfect, guys. Okay, therefore, everything else must go into the possessive pronoun box. So things like his, ours, mine, theirs, all things relating to ownership. Nice. Okay. Rewrite the sentences by replacing the nouns in italics with suitable pronouns. So, what could we replace Johnny with here? Oh, even football. I didn't even realize football was also in italics. So loads of people saying he. Yeah, because he hates it. The hippos scare the lions. Is there anything we could replace there? So we're going to replace hippos and lions. Nice, lots of people getting this right. It's they scare. Anything else? What would we replace the lions with? Nice, 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 nice. It's them. Okay. Katie invites Kimberly. Okay, let's look at this. Well, few people getting this right so far. She invited her is absolutely right. Okay, what about this is your work? No, okay, cool. People could, yeah, yours. Perfect. What about E? Nice, nice, nice. Okay, and then finally F. And the chat, loads of people smashing this. Nice. Loads of people said his. Perfect, guys. Absolutely smashing this, as always. Proud of you guys. Okay, complete the table below. So we've got in one column, we've got pronouns doing an action, pronouns being acted on, and then possessive pronouns. So I'll give you an example of what it means here. Pronouns doing an action, let's say in this instance, is I. Pronouns being acted on would be, if we're taking I, me. And a possessive pronoun would therefore be mine. So if we're thinking across the same logic between the three columns, what would be the pronouns doing the action of him? Those people getting this right, I think. Nice. People getting this right. People saying he is absolutely right. Okay, what would be the possessive version of that? Nice. Yep. Because we've got this right so far. His. Okay, if we're thinking about yours, what would that be? Nice. It is absolutely you. It's your perfect. Okay, circle the correct word in italics so these sentences make sense. The kids and me slash I went to the swimming pool. Ooh, so this one, these kind of things always get people out. The difference between me and I. Which one would it be here? Is it the kids and me or the kids and I? Ideas, getting a few answers in. People getting this right so far. Nice. It is I. You can cross out me. Give me slash I the packet of sweets. Did finish right as well. Love to see it. It is me. Nice. What about the C? Okay, we've got one person so far. No one else want to jump in? Ahmed saying it's I. Do we agree? Do we disagree? People agreeing. Nice. Yeah, we got agreements on this one. Good, good, good. What about D? Nice people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're all in agreement on this one by the looks of it. Perfect. It is I. Okay. Right. We might skip across. No, we won't. No, this is useful stuff. We won't. Okay. Keep on this. Hopefully, we get a few more questions done before we have to finish. So let's go question five. The meaning of these sentences isn't 100% clear. For each sentence, explain why it is confusing and write out a clearer version. So, e.g., let's say example, she had a sister and a dog. She was called Anna. This is confusing because you don't know who is called Anna. It could mean the sister, the dog, or the she at the beginning of the sentence. It would be clearer to write, she had a sister and a dog. The dog was called Anna. So we're thinking on that same logic of how to improve the clarity of our sentences. So there was a fly on Jimmy's sandwich, so he crushed it. Why is that not particularly clear? Which do you think? Nice, Ahmed's straight on it, the correct answer. Yeah, it's not clear which is being crushed, whether it's the sandwich or the fly. So, is there any way we could reword this sentence to make it clearer as to actually what was crushed? Could we say something along the lines of like let's say Jimmy crushed a fly, just so it's really specific. That was on his sandwich, something like that. So it's really clear that the thing he crushed was the fly, but he also intentionally crushed the sandwich as well. There was a fly on Jimmy's sandwich, so he crushed it, is already the one that's written. What about B? The students asked the staff if they could help. Why is that not particularly clear? What's the debate here? What might it mean? Ahmed's really on it. Okay. Not clear whether the staff are needed or students want to help the staff. It's exactly right. It's not clear whether they're asking the staff if the staff can help or if they're asking the staff if they can help the staff. Yeah, it's not clear what the dynamic is of help here. So is there any way we could reword this sentence to improve the clarity? Just so we're being really specific about who is helping who. Okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say something like, let's say the students asked if the staff could help them. Something like that. So it's really, really clear what the subject is here. That it's the staff that are going to be helping the students, not the other way around. The students asked the staff if they could help them. Perfect. Nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. People were giving great examples for this. Now, the bit I wanted to focus on was actually this bit here, because again, this is quite a common misconception or let's say source of error when it comes to grammar is the difference between which, who, and whom. So let's see how many we get right of these. I think the man something cleans the windows is called Trevor. Do you think that is who, whom, or which? Probably all getting this right. Perfect. Yeah, it is who for this one. The man who cleans the windows is called Trevor. Charlie doesn't know something Had to buy. Get this right. Nice, those people getting this right. It is which. Okay, to something are you writing? Nice. Perfect. People getting this right. It is whom. Perfect. The clouds, something are floating over Milton Wick are soft and fluffy. Because we're dealing with clouds, we're dealing with an object, not a person. So I think it's pretty clear, and a lot of people are getting this right. It is which. What about E? The story is about a prince falls in love with a princess. Getting this right. You're smashing this. Good. I'm glad this is easy. It should be. So when it comes to your GCSEs, you can smash these 20%. Or this 20%, sorry. Okay, what about F? The person, something I was speaking was very rude. Nice, nice. We're getting this right. It's who? Nice. Okay, what about Karen's paintings? Something so like hotcakes are on display in the town hall. Nice. Again, we've got to think we're dealing with an inanimate object, so it's not going to be who or whom. It's going to be which. Perfect. Okay. Let's finish off our pronouns with question 7. Okay, question 7A. Circle the correct word in italics so the sentence makes sense. I don't know whose dog won. Okay, let's move getting this right. You're all on this very quickly today. I appreciate this. Nice. It is whose because this one is short for who is. So it doesn't make sense if we were to say I don't know who is dog one. It has to be whose, which is to do with possession, ownership. Okay, B. Where's the man who's speaking? Nice. As we're getting this right. Yeah, it's the who is for this one. Okay, what about C? Perfect. So we're getting this right as well. Who is that over there? And what about D to finish us off? Nice. Oh, could people getting this wrong? No, it's this one because we're dealing with possession. It's ownership of the jacket. It wouldn't make sense to say who is jacket is this. So it's got to be the one to do with possession, which is whose, like that. Okay, right. We've got 10 more minutes. Let's fly through some verbs. We'll maybe get some adjectives and then we'll call it a night. I'm hoping, though, this is easy. This is somewhat helping and it's a nice break from the really difficult things we have been doing recently. Because, like I said last week, I do feel like I've maybe been pushing you slightly beyond your level. So it's good to just take a step back this week, I think. Okay, let's deal with some verbs then. Question 1, circle the words below, which are verbs. So when we think of verbs, we're dealing with doing words. So which here are actions? Okay, got a few coming through. So we've got take is definitely one of them. Drive is definitely one of them. Laugh is definitely one of them. Go is one of them. And then there's one more that you are missing. Nope. Someone said it. Two people said it. It is are. And all the others are not. That would be a noun because that's a thing. Um, again, this feeling of being is also technically not a verb, and neither is builder or already. So write the correct present tense forms of the verb to be on the dotted line below. I'll give you an example. So, for example, if we're dealing with A, it will be am, like I am happy. So if we're dealing with the present tense of being, um, what about be then? Or wise? You're calling me the wisest? Nice. It is R. Lots of people getting that right. Um, C. Nice. Lots of people getting this right. It is D. Perfect. E. Nice. Lots of people getting this right as well. F. Perfect. G. Nice, nice. Loads of people absolutely smashing it. I'm very confident when it comes to your GCSEs that you'll smash that 20%. Okay, right. Underline the verbs in the passage below that do not agree with their subject. Rewrite these verbs so that they do agree with their subject on the dotted lines below. Let's go sentence by sentence. There are some cows that live in the field just outside our house. I've already given the first one away because I instinctively read it the way that it should have been. It is lives. Yeah, what would be the correct way of saying lives? What's that supposed to be? Yeah, it is live. Nice. Just singular. Okay, second sentence. They walks down our road every Tuesday and the farmer moved them from one field to the other. There's two in this sentence that are wrong. What are they? Nice. People got walk, sorry. Nice. Nice. Yep, people picked up move as well. It should be moves. Okay, what about the next sentence? The neighbors always watches from their window to see what are going on. Is there anything in there that is wrong? Nice. Yeah, loads of people picking up on this one. Nice. Watches, sorry, should be watch. Anything else in that sentence? Lovely, lovely. Loads of people picking up on the R as well. Okay, next one. Normally the cows hardly ever stops, but whenever they do, they always eat mum's flowers. Is there anything in there that is wrong? Perfect. People are picking up on the stops, which should be stop. Whenever they do, they always eat mum's flowers. Yep, so we already picked up on the eats. Lovely. Okay, next sentence. Once this starts to happen, nothing can get them to move unless it rain. Nice. Just people picking up on this idea of rain, which should be rains. Okay, we've got two more to go. They does not like to get wet because the rain makes their hoofs go cold. Nice. There's people picking up on does. They does not. It should be don't. What's our last one? Okay, people not picking up on this last one. Oh, did I say it? I said it, my bad. Okay, it is make. Should be makes. Perfect. Right, in our last 5 minutes, then we'll make a start. Oh no, we got one more activity. Sorry, my bad. Write down whether the verbs in the sentences below are the present, past, or future tense. The sun shone for 6 hours. Is that past, present, or future? Past, past, past. Lovely. Okay, what about B? Rachel daydreams a lot. Nice. We've got the present for this one. Perfect. What about Amir loves his deck chair? People getting present again. Lovely. Love to see it. We will win the lottery one day. Okay, getting nice. Nice. Future, future. Loads of people saying future it is because they will win the lottery. They haven't done it yet. I forgot to turn the TV off. Nice. We're getting this is past because it's forgot. And Boris will lose the election. Nice. People getting future for this one as well because it is yet to happen. Okay, in our last 5 minutes then, let's make a start on some adjectives. We'll probably only get through questions one and two, and then we'll call it an evening. So, complete the following sentences, choosing the most suitable adjectives from the list below. You should only use one adjective once. Some pupils think that homework is tedious, time-consuming, and what? You're looking for a synonym of those words, or one that would best fit. A couple people got the same on this. Nice, it is pointless. Okay, however, teachers believe that homework is essential, educational, and oh, give us a sec for people to catch up, but we're getting a few correct answers. Nice, beneficial. Okay, fast food is often described as greasy, something, and something. We're saying flavorless, lovely, definitely flavorless. Anything else? I think one person said it, Agnes said it, is fattening as well, lovely. And flavorless. Perfect. Okay, I like horror movies because they are terrifying, something and something. Someone's going with grotesque, grotesque. Oh, someone said invigorating. That would fit in this instance, but it's not the one that they've gone for. The one they've gone for was tense. But invigorating would technically fit in because it's like to be um, stimulated. Okay, let's go through E. My grand thinks that pop music is repetitive, something and something. It's rhythmical would not necessarily fit into this context because think about what she thinks about it. It's clearly a negative opinion, and rhythmical would suggest something positive. Same with harmonious. She's looking for the ones that are negative or have negative connotations. Nice. Tuneless is definitely one of them. And then manufactured. Okay, let's finish this off. Other people believe pop music is. Now, this would be rhythmical. Oops, do I put in? Rhythmical, and then harmonious, and therefore the last one must be athletic, invigorating, and competitive. Competitive. Nice. Right, so we'll call it an evening there, just to give a few minutes of break time before we start GCSE. I'll stay around for a couple of minutes, setting things up. You're welcome to stay for the next session. I know this can be a little bit more boring than what we've done recently, but stick with me. It's very useful stuff. It's good practice, if nothing else. Yeah, if anyone has any questions. All right, see you later, those of you who are leaving. As always, you're welcome to stay for GCSE though. See you later. Right. I set up. Okay, right. Did you end up receiving my writing or should I resend it? Oh, I think I did, but I've not. Sorry, actually, let me have a look. I honestly have been very, very swamped recently, so I do apologize if I've not marked it. Um, Let me have a look through my emails right now. Just tell you. Probably quite far back. 21st of March, no, before that. Oh, sorry, I got it quite a while ago. I do apologize. Leave that with me. I'm catching up on work. I do apologize. I've got loads of marketing to get done for um other things first. I've got things coming up this week, but I will add it to my list of things I do need to get done. I do have it, so I do apologize. It's completely on me. Right, let's get hosting this game. I'll give you some time to join us. Anyone have any preferences in games this week? I love the soundtrack to the Cafe one, although that may be a little biased. Yeah, I do apologize. Actually, I've just been really really busy, and unfortunately I've had loads of A-level work that's had to take priority. Um, Otherwise I would have had time to mark. Anyone have any preferences? If not, I'm going with Cafe because I like the soundtrack purely based on the bias. Okay, right. Go on then. We'll make it 6 minutes. I feel might be appropriate. And mute that for now because that's a really annoying sound. Right, I'll give you 2 minutes to join. I'm sorry. This week's theme is revision to do with creative writing. Hopefully, you'll find it somewhat helpful. Good evening to those of you who are just joining for our session. How is everyone? Has anyone got anything to share? Any successes they want to share? Any tests they've done well on this week? Anything they want to ask? Please do. 37 out of 40 in my English test. Oh my God, that's so good. What kind of test was it? Language, literature, and what were you being tested on? But that's amazing. That's over 90%. Team came first on the national squash finals when they went down to Birmingham to play. That's amazing as well. I'm so like it's amazing seeing all these successes. Genuinely, I love to see it. Were you part of the team? Did you play? Or was this just like your team went down? Also, only 3 people in my game. And there's 10 of you on, so 7 people not in. 26 out of 30 on Frankenstein. Sorry, on the English essay, and then 30 out of 35 on Frankenstein Macbeth quiz. Guys, amazing, slaying it as you should. Brilliant news. How's everyone feeling for exams? Has it kind of hit yet? To year 11s? Got 2 months now. Okay, right. You've 30 more seconds to join our game. You can join mid-game, so don't worry. Anyone else got anything to share? These are all amazing successes, though. It was both language and literature marks, well, 20 for literature, 20 for language, 19 out of 20, and then 18 out of 20. This is amazing. Genuinely, this is genuinely really great news. Well done. And on the Scottish team and the games. That's amazing as well. That you're part of that team and you won. So good to see. I love when people are successful at what they do. Right, I'm going to start the game. Oh, Santa's in. Hey, Santa. Um, yeah, start the game. You can join mid-game, as always. Okay, if anyone who's not in the game and wants to share anything with me or to ask me any questions, now's your time. To get any other success stories. How are we all doing? Let's see what's going on. Oh, we'd love to see the champion taking his rightful place right at the top. Hi, my day was good. Thank you very much. Mondays are always a bit of a slow day, but we get through it. We're here. We're gauging. How was your day? How was school? Anyone want to share anything interesting they did at school? Nobody answered my exam question. Any year 11s stress started to hit yet? Are we all good? I look forward to those random questions. Do you want to hit me with a random question now? I've got time. I've got a minute 38. Ooh, the greatest invention of all time. Ooh. I mean, it's kind of like there's a lot of criteria and factors you've got to consider there. I mean, I'd go with something as basic as the light bulb, really, because like without that, you wouldn't have any electronics. I don't know. It's a wide question. Okay, I'll keep a note for next time. The gold and the hacking are the good ones. Okay, we've got 30 seconds left. S2S champions still massively in the lead by thousands. Nobody coming for them? Okay, let's see how everyone has done. As to be expected, it's the champ. I swear this is like 10 weeks running now. Right, let's see the final view. Let's see how everyone's doing. Okay, 64% correct. Okay, we're decent. We're decent. Could be higher. Let's see, 75, 60. I'm not even going to make the joke. 63, 75, 48. Oh, come on, Sana. I'll see you on Wednesday. Um, 58%. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Right, so let's go on with what we're actually doing today. Because we've not got too long. So we've been looking at assessment objective 4. I'm going to continue along that theme of assessment objective 4. We looked specifically in the context of AQA last week. And today we're going to look in the context of specifically Edexcel. That's not to say that if you don't do Edexcel, this won't be useful to you because it's exactly the same skill that's being assessed. So when I run through a practice with you in like 10 minutes time, you'll all be free to contribute and it's the same skill. So it will be useful to everyone. But I do need to go through the admin first. For those specifically doing Edexcel, your question looks slightly different to the AQA one. If you remember back, AQA was about to what extent do you agree to a statement? Whereas Edexcel is less to what extent do you agree and more evaluate how successfully something is achieved. So it will give you a statement. For example, last year's statement was in this extract, there is an attempt to create an atmosphere of mystery. Evaluate how successfully this is achieved. Support your views with detailed reference to the text. So slightly different to AQA, because it's not about to what extent, it's about evaluating success. Now, these are 15 markers, so slightly less heavily weighted than a singular AQA question, but on the total, Edexcel assesses more AO4 than AQA does. It assesses 30 marks worth, whereas AQA was only 20. So it is a bit more heavily weighted for Edexcel per the entirety of your exams. And I've still got the same criteria as I gave you last week for AQA. We still need to be considering language and structure, though to less extent, and we still need to be considering interpretations. However, the difference between AQA and Edexcel is that Edexcel is more about counter arguments than it is about interpretation. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So, when we're talking about success, what do we actually mean by success? Well, when you evaluate in English, you're making a critical judgment about the success, the text's successes and weaknesses. In other words, when in relation to this statement, for example, atmosphere of mystery, you've got to be considering, does the writer achieve that? Has the writer created a sense of mystery? Yes or no? And that's what you're considering. Are you agreeing or disagreeing with the statement? Kind of similar to AQA. Um, but I do want to give a little caveat here. For the text that you'll be given at Edexcel GCSE, they're not going to give you a bad text. The ones that they're going to give you are from famous, well-established novels. Things like writers like Charles Dickens, people like that. They're not going to give you some text that nobody knows. So they don't want you to be writing a full-on answer like, um, the writer is not successful in achieving mystery because the text was boring and it drolled on and X, Y, Z. They don't want that. So if you personally don't find it interesting, think more about the writer's intentions. Don't be thinking about your own personal opinion of the text. They're testing you on objectively looking at the text, not just coming from your own personal viewpoint. So you've always got to be considering strengths and weaknesses and avoiding giving an overly negative judgment, if that makes sense. So the difference is that it's strengths and weaknesses rather than agree or disagree. But the skills are exactly the same. It's still a evaluate debating question. So with Edexcel, there are certain, let's call them keywords that I would recommend using in your answer. So like this man here training at the gym, how do you show that you are evaluating? Because that's what the keyword here is in the question. Evaluate how successfully this is achieved. Well, I've got a few keywords that I would recommend using in your answer. Things like this: powerful, effective, compelling, successful. Oh, I've put successfully by accident. Why am I meant to put successful? And I would recommend including one of these words in your points or your analysis because they're like signposting words. They make it clear to the examiner what your viewpoint is. Do you think that the writer is successful or not? Do you think they are effective in getting their intentions across? Do you think they have powerfully conveyed those intentions? And do you think that they've done it in a compelling way? Those are sort of key signposting words that would just make it clear as to what sort of position you stand for in an exam. And I've used the acronym PECS to help you remember that. Always think about this guy in the gym. He's training his pecs. Powerful, effective, compelling, successful. Similar with spite. When you're reading through a text, you should always be considering what kind of thing could you actually pick out of that text. Well, I've written the acronym SPITE to remind you, along with a spiteful entity in the diagram below. So what does SPITE actually stand for? Your teachers might have gone through this. They might use this, they might not. I like this. But setting, people or perspective, ideas, tone, theme, and events. So we're going to go through a past extract today together, and we're going to go through and we're going to label these things on the extracts. So you should always be reading the extract, and as you go through, be noting down when the writer has made a point about any of these things. When they've successfully or not successfully used setting, when they've successfully or not successfully talked about people, specifically characters, maybe the narrator's perspective, any specific ideas they've talked about, if there's any tones that have been created that might be successful or not, themes and events, what's actually happening. And those of you with a keen eye who've been coming to my recent sessions will be able to notice that these are very similar to our structural techniques. If we're thinking about who, what, why, where, and when, setting is our where, character is our who, ideas are like intentions, our why, tone and theme are what, and events are when/what. So very similar to structure. However, I guess I'll caveat it by saying that it's less about what changes and more about how and why these things have been used to affect the reader. Because the question is about evaluating success. So you've got to be considering, in other words, have they been used well to achieve their desired intention? So it's not really about what changes. That's the difference between AO4 and AO2. AO2 is considering, are there any focus changes? Are there any character changes, X, Y, and Z? And how does that affect the reader? This is more about being specific to the statement given. And do you think these specific choices have been effective or not in achieving the writer's intentions? So read through the text and note when the writer uses each of these. Okay. I also briefly wanted just to note the difference here. I know I've gone on quite heavily about using PTAR paragraphs, especially when it came to AQA last week. But Edexcel is slightly different. What their expectation is of answers is slightly different, though the skill is the same. I personally would recommend using a point evidence explain kind of structure rather than Peter for Edexcel, um, purely because unlike edX, pardon me, unlike AQA, Edexcel is less concerned about technical analysis. Think about the mark scheme I showed you last week for AQA. There was specific noting about terminology, whereas in Edexcel, there isn't. I'm going to show you the mark scheme later, but there's no specific wording for mentioning terminology. So you could theoretically write an answer with no language or structural devices in there, and it would not theoretically affect your answer because they're testing your explanation skills. But it definitely helps. I personally would mark down an essay that didn't mention language or structure, because even though you're not going to analyze it like you would for AO2, mentioning it sometimes helps support your point, and especially when you're trying to explain why something is successful or not. And I would also do the same for the effect on the reader. Again, that's not something that is explicitly stated in Edexcel's mark scheme, but it's definitely, I would argue, quite key to answering the question of success. Because you've always got to be considering the writer's intentions. Have they affected the reader? Especially for a question like creating mystery, that's definitely about affecting the reader. And then finally, there are also less concerned about multiple interpretations for one quote, and more about you assessing overall strengths and weaknesses, counter arguments. So don't stress about overanalyzing quotes and just explain your view. Yeah, kind of similar here. AQA is less about, I mean, Edexcel, sorry, is less about picking out different connotations of words. We looked last week quite heavily at forming multiple interpretations for a singular quote. Edexcel's less concerned about that, and they'd rather you give counter arguments than you give interpretations, which again is the same skill, but slightly different wording. And the counter arguments come in your ability to say agree or disagree, and to consider whether a different person would view the text differently. So it's more about counter arguments, like a success versus not successful. But again, very similar skills. You could kind of win in the same ballpark as interpretation, really. And that's not to say, I should caveat here actually, that you can't include multiple interpretations because it's the same skill. If that's the way you enjoy writing and you prefer a Peter paragraph and you prefer to do different interpretations of the quotes, so be it. That was good as well. I'm just giving you the option of Peter versus P for this. So when we're dealing with analysis, then I would personally recommend using a 2-to-1 split, just so that you're getting range in. Now, this question is about the extent to which you agree about a statement being successful or not successful. Theoretically, you could fully agree. You could just say, cool, I absolutely 100% agree that the writers created mystery, full stop. Or you could 100% disagree if you wanted to. I personally wouldn't go down that route because to me, this is an evaluating question. It's a debate question. You need to be considering multiple interpretations as per the higher grade boundary of AO4. If you're not doing that, you're not going to get into the highest marking band. So the easiest way that I would do that is do 2 paragraphs as successes and 1 paragraph as a weakness, just so you can show that you're getting that range in of multiple interpretations and counter arguments. And like I said here, Edexcel's version of evaluate is considering successes and weaknesses, not multiple interpretations of one quote. Though again, I will caveat by saying also is still allowed. This is achieved by giving examples of both successes and weaknesses of a text and giving your direct opinion as to the extent of that success. Do you fully agree to successful, fully disagree, or can you see both sides? Okay, see what's being said in the chat. In AQA for language paper 1, does the text to question 5 have to relate to the unseen text in section A? No, sorry, it took me a while to comprehend what you're asking. No, it doesn't. No, the point of creative writing is exactly that, to be creative. So it should be unique, personally. So AQA is harder. I would argue not. I personally think it's a difficult one to what you describe as harder. If Edexcel is more concerned with AO4 than AQA is. Personally, I think AO4 is not one of the nicest of skills. So I would say if you're thinking along that lines, AQA is easier. But the writing style is different for Edexcel, in which I would argue the writing style is easier for Edexcel. But it really depends on your own preferences. Each exam board ex examines the same skills. So no matter what exam you do, you're going to have to do the same sort of questions. It's just the different proportions that change and the different, yeah. My English teacher says you don't have to disagree to get in the higher band, as that is where some students lose marks. You don't have to. I'm giving you that advice because when I mark essays, I personally would like to see that variation because I think to me it shows multiple interpretations. But like I said, this is Edexcel, it's different from AQA. For AQA, you have to be doing multiple interpretations to get into that higher marking band. Edexcel is a bit more lenient in the sense that you can get into that higher marking band without multiple interpretations, but I would argue I wouldn't give someone full marks without multiple interpretations for AO4. If that makes sense. So I would recommend doing it. You could ignore me if you want. You could do 3 paragraphs of 3 successes. And you'll see an example I've actually put at the end where somebody has done that and got into the top of band, highest marking band. Just my advice, personally. But yeah, you are right. You don't have to do interpretations. So let's work our way through an example text. If this was your question, then highlight keywords in the question is the first thing that I would do if I was you when I got into the exam. So in this extract, there's an attempt to create an atmosphere of mystery. Evaluate how successfully this is achieved. The reason I would argue that you should have multiple counter arguments is because of the word evaluate. Evaluate means consider the pros and the cons. If you're not considering both sides, you're not evaluating. You're just saying I completely agree, which yeah, is by the by. But evaluate how successfully this is achieved. Support your views with detailed reference to the text. So if I was you and I was in my exam and I was highlighting the key points of this question, the first thing I would do is focus on the word extract. When it says extract, it means the whole text. If it hasn't given you specific lines, it's referring to the whole text. So make that clear. There will be specific questions where it does give you the exact lines, in which case you need to make sure that you're sticking to those lines. But because this is just the entire extract, you can pick quotes from anywhere in the text. So there is an attempt to create mystery, to create an atmosphere of mystery. I stress this, and I can't stress this enough to you. Make sure you've got a very keen focus on whatever this statement is here, because this statement will change depending on your exam. But everything you write in your answer should be directly relevant and directly answering this statement here. And in this particular question, it's does the writer create an atmosphere of mystery? So you need to make sure that everything you're writing is relevant and directly linked to mystery, an atmosphere of mystery. Evaluate how successfully this is achieved. Now, I've again highlighted the word evaluate. It means consider strengths and weaknesses, both sides of the writer's methods. If you're not doing that, then you're not evaluating. And again, like somebody said, there is a caveat. Edexcel is a bit nicer in the sense that it's the one exam board that will let you get away with not giving multiple sides of an argument. Like if you gave 3, I fully agree statements, you'd get into the higher marking band, you'd get away with it. But I would still try and at least evaluate properly. So I put make sure to consider this in relation to the effects on the reader as well. Because personally, when we're thinking about atmosphere, I'd definitely be considering the effects of the reader, because atmosphere is all about feeling. I think the word successfully. Successful means have the writer's intentions been perceived by the reader, and to what extent and how? So, has the writer's intentions of creating mystery been successfully perceived by me or you, the reader? If not, Why not? If they have, how? Why? Always make sure to explain yourself. Support your views with detailed reference to the text. Make sure you're giving keyword quotations. Make sure they're accurate. You get marked down if you quote something that's not accurate. If you've paraphrased, that's not going to get you any marks. They need to be exact. And I would also recommend using shorter quotes, like we covered last week. And then finally, it's 15 marks. I'd be aiming for 3 to 4 detailed point evidence analyzed paragraphs, if that makes sense. Now, I want to quickly say before we go through this extract, I'm not going to focus this week on telling you how to write a Peter or a point evidence explain paragraph. We did that last week and we covered that in the basics of AO4. So if you're struggling, go back and look at those. We're just going to have a practice this week. So what I will do then is I'm going to read this entire extract. And as I do, I want you to be thinking about the question, which is, how has the writer created an atmosphere of mystery? Or rather, were they successful at creating mystery? So, in one moment, every drop of blood in my body was brought to a stop by the touch of a hand laid lightly and suddenly on my shoulder from behind me. I turned on the instant, with my fingers tightening around the handle of my stick. There, in the middle of the broad, bright high road, there, as if it had that moment sprung out of the earth or dropped from the heaven, stood the figure of a solitary woman dressed from head to toe in white garments, her face bent in grave inquiry on mine, her hand pointing to the dark cloud over London as I faced her. I was far too seriously startled by the suddenness with which this extraordinary apparition stood before me, in the dead of night and in that lonely place, to ask what she wanted. The strange woman spoke first. "Is that the road to London?" she said. I looked attentively at her as she put that singular question to me. It was then nearly 1 o'clock. All I could discern distinctly by the moonlight was a colourless, youthful face, meagre and sharp to look at about the cheeks and chin, large, grave, wistful, attentive eyes, nervous, uncertain lips, and light hair of a pale brownish yellow hue. There was nothing wild, nothing immodest in her manner. It was quiet and self-controlled, a little melancholy and a little touched by suspicion. Not exactly the manner of a lady, and at the same time not the manner of a woman in the humblest rank of life. The voice, little as I had yet heard of it, had something curiously still and mechanical in its tones, and the utterance was remarkably rapid. She held a small bag in her hand, and her dress, bonnet, shawl, and gown, all of white, was, so far as I could guess, certainly not composed of very delicate or very expensive materials. Her figure was slight and rather above the average height, her gait and actions free from the slightest approach to extravagance. This was all that I could observe of her in her dim light and under the perplexingly strange circumstances of our meeting. What sort of a woman she was, and how she came to be out alone in the high road an hour after midnight, I altogether failed to guess. The one thing of which I felt certain was the grossest of mankind could not have misconstrued her motive in speaking, even at that suspiciously late hour and in that suspiciously lonely place. Yes, I replied, that is the way, at least to St. John's Wood and Regent's Park. You must excuse my not answering you before. I was rather startled by your sudden appearance in the road, and I am even now quite unable to account for it. You don't suspect me of doing anything wrong, do you? I have done nothing wrong. I have met with an accident. I've been met with an accident. I am very unfortunate in being here alone so late. Why do you suspect me of doing wrong? She spoke with unnecessary earnestness and agitation, and shrank back from me several paces. I did my best to reassure her. Pray don't suppose that I have any idea of suspecting you, I said, or any other wish than to be of assistance to you if I can. I only wondered at your appearance in the road because it seemed to me to be empty the instant before I saw you. She turned and pointed back to the place at the junction of the road to London and the road to Hampstead, where there was a gap in the hedge. I heard you coming, she said, and hid there to see what sort of a man you were, before I risked speaking. I doubted and feared about it till you passed, and then I was obliged to steal after you and touch you. Steal after me and touch me? Why not call to me? Strange to say the least of it. Okay. Very quickly, I'm answering this question. What is AO4? Assessment Objective 4 is the fourth of six ways that you are assessed in your English language exam. There are six different types, or rather five different types of question, AO4 being one of them. It's basically an evaluation question. So it's testing your ability to make judgments about a text, whether you agree or disagree about something. Okay, let's go through it chronologically. And as we go through, I want you to be thinking about the acronym SPITE. Where has there been mention of people, events, themes, setting, tone, that sort of thing? So, in one moment, every drop of blood in my body was brought to a stop by the touch of a hand laid lightly and suddenly on my shoulder from behind me. You could argue we've got an event here straight away. How was the text opened? And why is that a particularly interesting thing if we're considering mystery being created? Any ideas? Any ideas? I will tell you what I said. This is quite a sudden thing to happen. We've opened the extract with a hand coming from behind him on his shoulder. It's quite sudden and it's almost unexplained, almost representative of this disruption of normality. So it's quite a specific event to happen. So you could label that as an event. You could also label it as um, people as well. You've got the first mention of somebody else in the scene. The narrator, there's a focus of physical intrusion here, as another character comes behind our narrator and touches him on the shoulder. So, if we think about mystery, you could argue that represents confusion or it creates fear in the reader, as well as in the narrator, and highlights themes of like vulnerability and fear. And if you were to talk about techniques, for example, I would mention in media res. We started this extract in the middle of action. We started quite quickly and fast paced, which adds to the very sudden disruption of normality, which creates mystery because it's there's loads of things that are unexplained here. And so I guess the suddenness is almost throws you off as a reader. And you could also mention the hyperbole that every drop of blood in my body, not he literally couldn't have lost every drop of blood in his body. That just wouldn't have happened on a literal level. So it's exaggerating how stressed and how fearful he is at this moment. So you could use that support for your point. Um, I turned on the instant with my fingers tightening on the handle of my stick. There in the middle of the broad, bright high road, there, as if it had that moment sprung out of the earth or dropped from the heaven, stood the figure of a solitary woman. We'll stop there. You could pick out here, if you wanted to, the first mention of setting. We've got the middle of a bright, broad, high road. The setting is already quite isolated. Um, we could argue it's disorientating. Then we've got the mention to the darkness, a dark cloud over London, the dead of night. I think somebody mentioned the dead of night. Um, Shows mystery as it's quite a mysterious atmosphere, which makes the reader wonder what the lady is doing at that time. Yeah, you've got this curiosity of what is she doing? Why are her motives, or what are her motives? Are they malicious, or are they genuine? Definitely, and that setting creates that ambiguity because of that isolation. It's almost quite foreboding. It's the dead of night. There are clouds. It's really ominous, that setting, isn't it? Which you could argue is very mysterious because it makes her motives unclear. Um, in terms of people, the way that she's introduced is very eerie, almost very supernatural. And we can support that by the repetition of there, for example. That I guess highlights how suddenly she's just appeared, almost presenting her as apparition-like, that we're questioning how she even got there. Our narrator is very surprised, hence the repetition of there. We've also got this like simile comparing her to being something supernatural, something that had sprung out of the earth or dropped from the heaven, almost creating like demon-like imagery that she just dropped from the heaven, very much like how Satan was kicked out of heaven, a fallen angel, if you will. Same with sprung out of the earth, as if it's come out of the hot lava. You've got this supernatural, evil, demonic imagery in the simile there. That's juxtaposing her to light, the bright high road, which again is kind of emphasizing her possible evil intentions. So, yeah, we've got debate there to be had. Definitely creates mystery because we're unsure of her intentions and who she is. You could argue then we've got fragmentation as well. Like, this is from our narrator's perspective, you've got to remember. So, this is his opinion. So, the fact that he's feeling quite fragmented shows us that his thoughts are quite sporadic, so representing his fear and uncertainty. That's definitely a mystery if I've ever heard it before. We've then got a semantic field if we keep reading on. She's a solitary woman. I was far too seriously startled by the suddenness with which this extraordinary apparition, in the dead of night in that lonely place. We've got a semantic field of isolation there, which we could add to our tone, which is definitely foreboding and unsettling. And we'll finish off with this question. Is that road to London, she said? Her tone here is quite calm. This is the beauty of AO4. It's about evaluating and debate. On one hand, we've got this really supernatural evil imagery. She suddenly just appeared out of nowhere. Her motives are unclear, but her tone is really calm. So that could suggest two things. It could be that she's, I guess, genuine, or it could be that she's deceptive and malicious. And again, that tone is foreboding and unsettling because as a reader, we just don't know. And that is what mystery is. As she says, could drop from heaven symbolize how immoral it is, as you may have been kicked out or too strange or mysterious to fit in? Absolutely. It's like the idea of the fallen angel. Like you could argue illusion to fallen angels. They're like the ones who've done wrong and therefore have been kicked out. Book seems kind of fire. It's Woman in Black. If you've ever seen the film, decent film that. Okay, we'll continue. I looked, this is the longest and most dense part of the extract, so we'll split it up. I looked attentively at her as she put that singular question to me. It was then nearly 1 o'clock. All I could discern distinctly by the moonlight was a colourless, youthful face, meagre and sharp to look at about the cheeks and chin, large, grave, wistful, attentive eyes, nervous, uncertain lips, and light hair of a pale brownish yellow hue. So straight away, we could note the mention of people here. We've got a really dense description of the way that she looks and her appearance. To me, that suggests mystery because her appearance is very ambiguous. Like, we've got this colorless yet youthful face, suggesting almost like illness versus not illness. You've got a lot of contrasts here in the description. Sharp to look at, large, grave, wistful, attentive eyes, uncertain lips. There's a lot of contrast here, so you've got an ambiguous description. However, the pace is relatively slow compared to the previous paragraph. There to build mystery and tension, to get as a reader to get you thinking. You could pick out the setting as well. We've got moonlight mentioned, which could symbolize the narrator's confusion. When things happen under moonlight, it tends to be very ominous. The moonlight is almost an exposing kind of light. Now, if we think about language, we've got listing here. He lists in a very long, complex sentence different physical attributes of her, building that supernatural imagery. And I guess that presents mystery because it's presenting her as quite corpse-like. And as a reader, that makes you feel quite unsettled and uncomfortable because you fear for him. And again, it puts into question her motives. Who is she? We don't know who she is. The writer hasn't told us. The writer is withholding information from us and we're trying as a reader to piece things together. There was nothing wild, nothing immodest in her manner. It was quiet and self-controlled, a little melancholy and a little touched by suspicion. Not exactly the manner of a lady, and at the same time, not the manner of a woman in the humblest of rank of life. Now, I'm actually going to put some counter arguments in yellow. You could argue that, um, oh, I forgot a point. Sorry, we'll go back to this one. I've skipped a point. Sorry. So we're thinking about grave and wistful. That's quite oxymoronic. So we'll say that adds to a complex, unreadable character. Now, if we're thinking about counter arguments, we've got a couple here. He says that there was nothing wild, nothing immodest, quiet, self-controlled. Um, yeah, he has a tone that's quite reassuring here. Um, the fact that there's that repetition of nothing is really reassuring because he's as the narrator is basically saying that there is nothing to worry about, that he's not concerned about her. So as a reader, that almost strips away the mystery because from the narrator's perspective, he's seeing the situation as absolutely fine. Same here. On one hand, you could apply the oxymoronic grave and wistful as like she's unreadable, therefore we don't know who she is, so it's mysterious. But also you could just read it on a literal level that she's sad, possibly implying danger, which therefore is not mysterious, I guess. Um, The voice, little as I had yet heard of it, had something curiously still and mechanical in its tones, and the utterance was remarkably rapid. You've got the mention here of the voice being mechanical and remarkably rapid, almost re-emphasizing that supernatural imagery and presenting her as inhuman, the mechanical, remarkably rapid. But then also you could counter-argue this by saying that maybe she's speaking rapidly because she's urgent and because she actually genuinely is in danger and could be hurt. Up to you to decide which one, but you could interpret it that way. It later says, "This was all that I could observe of her in the dim light." Now, this is an important structural point if we're thinking about perspective, for example, because he says you've got to consider the literal things that are happening here. It's in moonlight, the road is dimly lit, there are clouds, it's dark. So, on a literal situation, he probably has quite an obscured view of her. He can't see her fully. And he's acknowledging that. He's saying that all I could observe of her in this dim light were these physical attributes. What sort of a woman she was and how she came to be alone on the high road an hour after midnight, I altogether failed to guess. So this first person narration almost reminds the reader of his limited knowledge, that the writer is purposefully withholding information from the reader, forcing us into a period of uncertainty, therefore creating mystery because we don't know who she is or what she wants. And that's emphasized by the narration style. However, if we're thinking about multiple interpretations, it could just be interpreted that he's ignorant of her. He literally says, I altogether failed to guess. It could just be that he's given up, that he doesn't care, or that he's misread her. So as a reader, we're being made to feel like she's someone mysterious and ominous, when actually he just has misread her completely, possibly. And then you've got the repetition here of suspicious as well, which therefore creates mystery because it adds to our suspicions of her. Okay, right. We're halfway. Or rather over halfway, because that was the biggest bit. Did you hear me? She said, still quietly and rapidly, and without the least fretfulness of impatience. I asked if that was the way to London. Now, we're introduced quite quickly here. The woman becomes quite assertive and persistent. She's gaining, I guess, arrogance and anger here, and therefore the tone is quite uneasy and tense because we've got the introduction of confrontation. However, her calm tone and repetition of the question build suspense. Again, we're building mystery. Who is she? Why is she acting this way? Why is she making us feel uncomfortable? Why is she building suspense? He replies with quite formal language. He gives her the directions and tries to almost do damage control and restore normality. However, this gets followed with, and what I think is quite an interesting response from her. She's asked a question. He's replied very calmly, very formally, very politely. And her response is, "You don't suspect me of doing anything wrong, do you? I have done nothing wrong. I have met with an accident. I am very unfortunate in being alone here so late. Why do you suspect me of doing anything wrong? Her response is very defensive for a woman who might be in danger. Um, yeah, and you got this repeated rhetorical question usage and the repetition of the that she's done nothing wrong, nothing wrong, doing wrong. This repetition of wrong really creates this accusatory tone from her. She's accusing the narrator in quite a frantic way, really presenting how defensive she is. So as a reader, that creates mystery because you're thinking, why is she getting so defensive? Why is she panicking this much? It almost presents it almost makes us more suspicious of her that she's getting defensive. And so again, it's quite ominous in this sort of like way that we're thinking about her. As well as the ambiguous language and accident. There's no specificity there at all, which really puts her motives into question along with the themes of like guilt versus innocence and judgment. Like, is the debate, is he misjudging her? Is she guilty? Is she innocent? We don't know, but definitely something to consider. Um, the people here, she spoke with unnecessary earnestness and agitation and shrank back from me several paces. I did my best to reassure her. Now, this is an interesting thing to think about because the power balance changes here. We thought that we kind of knew their relationship. He was calm, he was a bit scared of her. Um, she was the ominous supernatural figure. But I think this last sentence, or the last two sentences here, change that completely and flip it on its head. Because this last sentence almost implies the power balance is the opposite way around, that she's scared of him. She took several paces back from him, making it seem like he's the threat almost. So, yeah, by changing that power imbalance, it creates mystery because you still don't know why she's there. Is she actually a fearsome supernatural force, or is she genuinely in danger and that's why she's scared of him? The question's to be answered. And I guess you could support that through the metaphor, the shrinking back, almost symbolizes her fear of the narrator, which therefore reverses the expectations. Who is actually threatening? Is she innocent? Is this foreboding or is this deceptive? Multiple interpretations for you to consider yourself. Whether you agree that that she's deceptive or not is up to you. That's your personal choice. With the thinking about multiple interpretations, we've got to consider the fragmentation here. Which adds to our debate. Is she defensive out of fear or manipulation? Up to you. It's really up to you. And then lastly, pray don't suppose that I have any idea of suspecting you, I said, or any other wish than to be of assistance to you if I can. I only wondered at your appearance in the road because it seemed to me to be empty before the instant I saw you. She turned and pointed back to the place at the junction of the road to London and the road to Hampstead, where there was a gap in the hedge. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I want to focus all our energy on these last two paragraphs. I heard you coming, she said, and hid there to see what sort of man you were. Before I risked speaking. I doubted and feared about it till you passed, and then I was obliged to steal after you and touch you. Now, this is quite interesting because he tries to reassure her and so diminishes the tension. However, the events here are strange. She reveals her actions, that she hid in a bush, she watched him and spied on him, waited for him to be vulnerable before coming up to him. Those are weird actions that to me feel quite ominous and quite eerie. Um, they're secretive. Therefore, to me, I feel suspicious of her because why would she have waited in a bush? If she was genuinely in an accident, like she claims to be before, and if she was genuinely scared of him, why would she have hidden a bush and watched him and waited for him to be vulnerable? Yeah, it's not adding up. And the tone here is very disturbing, very unsettling, very ominous, and you get that theme of secrecy. And if we look for language devices to support this, you've got this semantic field here of the verbs of hiding, stealing, and touching, all of which have criminal connotations, which escalates the tension as her behavior becomes more objectively suspicious. And the ambiguity surrounding the woman Is she malicious or is she genuinely scared and in danger? Because doubted and feared suggests that she is genuinely in need of help, but her actions of hiding in the bush heavily contradict that. And again, whether you believe it or not is up to you. And as well, the setting. Setting is desolate, and the fact that she hid in a ben, hidden in a hedge, sorry. And then it ends. Steal after me and touch me. Why not call to me? Strange to say the very least. The narrator ends this extract by questioning her behavior. But because we end on a cliffhanger, we don't get a resolution, which adds to the mystery because the reader is encouraged to question her motives. We don't get an answer to this question, so therefore it extends the mystery to beyond this extract. Now, I won't go through these, but I've listed here some possible interpretations if you want to go through them at your own leisure. Now, we only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to very quickly go through the mark scheme for those of you who do this. And I'll give you a high scoring answer that I wrote, and then I will leave you there. So, very similar to the mark scheme of AQA, except it's a lot sort of shorter. You see kind of what I was saying about Peter versus point evidence analyze. In the AQA mark scheme, you get more things that are suggestive of Peter, whereas here it's more suggestive of point evidence analyze. So, for example, evaluations of ideas, events, themes, and settings is kind of our analysis. It's not directly mentioned terminology like the AQA mark scheme does. However, I think it's implied that I would recommend still using them because I think they're good to support points, if nothing else, like I did on these slides here. There is a sustained and detached critical overview, a judgment about the text. Well, that's definitely the point because it's the judgment. But then again, I feel like you can't really support that point without mentioning the effect on the reader. Again, not explicitly stated, but I would still recommend doing it. And then the selections of references is apt and discriminating and persuasive in clarifying the points being made. So making sure you're giving multiple quotes that are relevant and tightly linked to the question, that are all linked together. So I will leave you on this. I will read you through a model answer that I've written. And I will quickly say that you can, at your own leisure, go through these. I've listed, if you do Edexcel, some example texts of high scoring answers for you to go through and look at your leisure. And I've gone through this one and highlighted in colors the PETA sort of paragraph structure here. I will leave that for your own leisure and I will leave you with this. So I've written two paragraphs, one claiming success, one claiming not successful. And I've highlighted in colors, again, the PETA structure, just so it's clear to you what skills I'm using. So the writer is highly successful at creating mystery by deliberately withholding clear explanations for the woman's appearance. Structurally, the encounter begins in media res with the sudden touch of a hand from behind, and the cause is only revealed after a delayed clause, which effectively builds immediate tension and confusion for the reader. This sense of uncertainty is then intensified through the simile that she appeared as if it had sprung out of the earth or dropped from the heaven, which establishes supernatural imagery by juxtaposing her to the bright road, presenting her appearance as being unusual, sudden, and mysterious, rather than ordinary. Moreover, although the narrator provides detailed description of her physical appearance, it remains inconclusive what sort of a woman she was, as the narrator altogether failed to guess, which is effective at creating mystery because it denies the reader certainty. The structural decision to end on a rhetorical question, why not call to me, is also compelling as it leaves the situation unresolved and ensures the mystery continues beyond the extract. Then I've gone on to say, furthermore, the writer successfully adds to the atmosphere of the mystery by detailing the woman's strange behavior. The use of the semantic field of criminal verbs, hid, steal, and touch, presents her motives as suspicious, making the reader feel unsettled by the ominous nature of her ambiguous actions. However, the writer is not entirely successful at sustaining mystery because too much is eventually explained about the woman's behavior. Structurally, the tension is reduced when she clearly states that she hid there and steal after you, which provides a logical explanation for her sudden appearance and therefore weakens the initial sense of the supernatural. Additionally, the narrator's detailed and rational observations that her behavior was nothing wild, nothing modest, and quiet and self-controlled work to normalize her as the repetition of the pronoun nothing emphasizes the narrator's certainty about her behavior, which makes her seem less threatening and less mysterious. This use of reassuring language is less effective because it guides the reader towards a reasonable interpretation rather than allowing the uncertainty to remain. Okay. Right, I will leave it there. And as I said, you have these slides. I've given you sentence starters for you to use. I've given those of you who do Edexcel a nice checklist. And I've given you all model answers to read through at your leisure to give you an idea of the writing style required for this kind of question. I hope that's been helpful. I'll stay around for a couple of minutes to answer questions, but otherwise, have a lovely evening, guys, and a week. How can you tell what the pace is? Pacing is something that you just learn to tell. Normally, there are some key giveaways. Simple sentences are fast paced because there's not really much bulk of the sentence. It's quite short, it's by bum, 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 it's over. That's fast paced. Whereas if you have quite a lengthy description of something, that's slow. Like if you have a really hefty paragraph, that tends to be slow in pacing. Um, yeah. Whereas like things like fragmentation make things fast. Simple sentences. You've really got to be looking at the type of sentence because complex tends to be slow, simple, fast. Um, it's just the way that it's read, really. Can you do a paragraph on how she's mysterious, then one how she later she isn't? Um, no, it doesn't have to all be in one. You could do separate. You could be one paragraph how she is, one paragraph how she's not. And that's, yeah, it doesn't have to all be in one. Because we're marking your skills, not your specific writing style. Okay, right. Any other questions? What's my favorite grocery store? That's a random one. Um, you know what? I have to say probably Sainsbury's. I do love a Sainsbury's shop. When you get older, these things interest you. Sounded old. Okay, right. If there's no more questions, I will let you go. Have a lovely week, guys. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your hard work as always, and well done for those of you who have been really successful lately.